recording on Wednesday's December 10th, 2025 at 10:07 a.m. Eastern Time with Colonel Watkins and Brigadier General Holt and of course Mr. E.M. Burlingame. And the show was wildly successful last week, and despite honestly a lot of it kind of being over my head, and I'm pretty cocky about reading and whatever intelligence I feel I have, and I was just kind of watching you guys slackjawed last week, so in all likelihood, that's about what's going to happen again, and which is fantastic because I just get to listen to a show. So I'm going to have EM kick it off because we do have a limited amount of time, and we got to cram it all into an hour. So EM.
Let's talk about national security threats in the form of corporations and corporate leadership at every level and financial leadership. 30, so I just got a new laptop yesterday and I'm trying to set it up. It's probably going to take me 3 days now because everything's so damn complicated and Microsoft's so intrusive with its, Copilot AI, which is a straight up
Yeah,
collection tool,
we'll be in your head all day.
right? So I've been quite literally, it's probably going to take me 3 days to get the damn thing set up, right? So all this but the thing that it really got me thinking about is, okay, the two biggest information collection operations in the world is Microsoft and Google. Both of them are led by Indians. And many, many, many of the departments, many of the sub-departments, many of the leadership positions are all Indians. 30 years ago, this would never have been allowed on national security basis alone. We're being reoccupied through the same vector that the Dutch occupied the English in the 1600s that led to the 1688 Inglorious Revolution. All done right in front of us, right out in the open. Right? I'm sitting here, I'm like, why am I using a Microsoft device and Google, Google accounts and all of this when the very people who are running those companies are not Americans? I don't even care if they were born here. Where is their loyalties? Again, 30 years ago, when I was, building companies and on the investor side of things, none of this would have been allowed on national security basis. So what's happened, Colonel and Brigadier, what's happened in the last 20, 30 years where so many of our no joke national security impacting industries and businesses are all run by Indians?
Well,
Can we also go
go
ahead?
ahead.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say for the audience, because they're not going to know what we know, is that the backbone of the Secretary of War in our entire military is built on Microsoft.
And Google.
It
Yeah.
was not,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I'm talking about the actual devices,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
laptop. It was
Yeah.
not until the late 2008, 2010, where you could even carry an Apple device. There was no variation. It was all laptops, everything ran on Microsoft. And as to your point, that's a national security threat.
Well, and virtually all of the, coming from a tech background, right, and having been one of the guys who was involved in the transition from the old Sperry mainframes, right, the Sperry 9000 mainframes to Banyan, Vines, and IBM token networks back in, the early 90s. All of the applications that were being built out even then in the 90s were all on .NET framework, which is also Microsoft.
Just skipping back a little further than that.
Yeah.
When we have, so in my college days, I was trained to run a IBM 3689 mainframe, and then eventually
terminal,
the mother of all antiques, the Silver Lake AS400 computer, and in the backdrop, this fanciful thing that was starting to emerge that nobody thought was more than a video game player was this PC running this thing called DOS while it started to show utility when it could connect to the government's BNet or ARPANET, which was really the internet that Al Gore claims he invented. And then, Mike, who is a college dropout, Bill Gates claims he really invented DOS, which he absolutely did not. He stole DOS, but
he bought it. But
he did not invent any of it. So here's the problem is What I think, if we go back and do an autopsy, because I think, EM, that's what you're really looking at here is an autopsy. It's an autopsy of a strategy, and it's a boiling frog strategy. They have known for
Yes.
generations
Yes.
where they were taking this. They have
Yes.
known what the future of this was forever.
Yes.
And the path to that boiling frog place took on two branches. It took a branch of acceptance where we, the people, would go, man, the convenience is hot, love it, it's making my life easier. I am in, and I'm willingly going in. And then on the other side, their limitation was technical in that Silicon Valley had to honor Moore's law and get the size of the processor and the transistor down, and now we've got trillions of transistors on a big massive wafer photon chip that now is being perfected up at Light Matters and Xanadu up in Ottawa. And so on those two tracks, what that creates is enablers for the national security threat that you're talking about. So all those little branches and vines, H-1B visa program, we don't have the talent to bring in. The Indians belong to the math tribe. They're going to come in with all of their mathematics and they get the coding much easier, but we can pay them a sixth of the wages. And so they make the beachhead there. But what I would say is that it's all part of what looked like to me when we were in the GWAT as a war planner. It's just a shelved war plan. It's got branches and sequels. It hits brick walls and then it goes into a different branch and sequel, but it still has its main outcome, and its main outcome is depopulation and enslavement of us and taking out national borders, removing sovereignty, and then just going for control. And they've even got a branch and a sequel for that because they take what I just said, bundle it up in tin foil, and say, aha, this is all the crazy people. And as soon as we can get back to building institutions, we should put these crazy people in those institutions first. So and it involves all of our intelligence services and the foreign intelligence services. And everybody wants to point fingers at enemies, and they're always pointing in the wrong direction, which is a perfect fifth generation campaign because they're looking, the Israelis are co-opting us. Okay, you're partly right. Look, the Indians are coming after us. Maybe. Look, it's all done by these 13 shadowy overlords that we name many names to, but they're really they think they're in a very strong position. I think there's chinks in the armor because as a planner and a strategist, anything that is too complex, has too many lines of effort, has infinite types of possibilities. You can just go to game theory and then you can say, well, then what we have here is a lot of asymmetric opportunity in our system. So take your new Pride and Joy laptop. Copilot's here to help you. If you take that down the street to a 18-year-old kid and have him wipe it and put Linux Ubuntu on there, and then maybe start looking at Graphene iOS for your Android phone, you've effectively dealt the enemy a little bit of a blow, a micro blow, but enough of those, and you're on the right track to an asymmetric look at what we're dealing with.
Now, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that at the scale necessary. The reality is that we need to either remove these companies or we need to replace, go back to the concepts and ideas of we don't do things that impact national security adversely.
Let
We
let,
don't.
let the colonel jump in. I was gonna say
Yeah.
if I interrupt you guys, it's
Yeah.
because I host it, I get like the perfect thing, but I can tell when there's a delay in different guests. So if I'm just pushing to one or to the other, it's to avoid a traffic jam. So, Colonel.
So I want to put a practical face to what the general just said. For anyone in the audience that does not believe that this is the boiling pot, if you go back to the Phoenix program, most people do not know that in Vietnam, the people there that they forcibly migrated from the north to the south to prop up the upcoming election of President Diem, the quote unquote Catholic, was done with a computer system. And they basically did what all of us are fearful of now in entering all of those people into a database and tracking them. They set up these new villages where you had to check in and out every single day. They massively surveilled those people as a beginning step to what you're seeing unfold across the world today. Go forward to Operation Condor in Latin America. I found out that IBM basically infiltrated, I mean, they were invited in, not infiltrated, and set up a massive computer system in Latin America to begin tracking quote unquote dissidents. They called it Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and they deployed this IBM database through all of the countries that were targeted as Operation Gladio. So the CIA would go in and overthrow the government, put in a military dictatorship, and they began tracking dissidents. So if we overthrew Brazil, if anybody left Brazil and went to Argentina, they were tracked and killed in that other country using these databases. So anyone who thinks this is far-fetched, honey, it's been going on for decades, and they've perfected what they're rolling out here now through all of these CIA operations around the globe.
That's how Doug Valentine ends his book. The Phoenix Program is the last chapter is all these guys coming back after 9/11, looking at DHS and have these like old, hardened military vets. They're tearing up. They're like, this is the Phoenix Program. Bad tears, not like, oh my God, it's here.
I've said that every time someone posts
fusion centers
out there, it's the Phoenix Program. It's the Phoenix Program being rolled out in the United States.
This is why they're rolling out all the data centers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And to something the Brigadier said, it is thermodynamically impossible for them to actually be able to do it at this scale. They can't do it. This is why the mass depopulation is required. Why? Because technologically, in order to maintain it and actually have that kind of control, they have to have under 1 billion people. They're talking something like 600 million people. Right? So, Brigadier, to your point, it's not so much, go and do the harder stuff, get out of the Microsoft environment and do all these other things that very few people are going to do. It's, honestly, how you deal with such a thing is you overwhelm the system.
That's a good point. That's a great point, because when, I've been in a war fighting command and control situation at a combatant command, the thing that I watched, not necessarily myself, but I watched the whole planning staff freak out on is in a war plan while in execution, watching them roil when something went so far asunder that for an effect or impact that they didn't expect, that that their resistance or their adversary. So case in point, we dealt with Crimea. So I was there at European Command when the little green men started showing up on Crimea. And, since Maidan, those of us with half a brain were predicting, the bear's been poked and the bear will come. And this is going to happen. It was like watching from a far off canyon in the distance, a train track where two trains are going at each other. And for 6 months, you're like, shouldn't somebody do something about this? And it was heads in sand. And then the night comes and we've got trouble in Crimea. We've got people being shot up on the border, and we've got guys wearing no uniforms coming across. And it's like, who cares whether they're wearing uniforms? It's the Russian army. They're here. And it was but the more important thing for me in the takeaway was watching everybody from 4-star general to 1-star general and some senior colonel planners freak out, just absolutely lose their toast, because cognitively they were in a normalcy bias for 6-7 months, going, yeah, no, they're deterred. We're not going to worry about them. And no, they're not deterred. So I'm the logistician for the command. I'm sitting there watching over 6-7 months, BTGs, the battle groups, show up on the Ukrainian border. And I know how much Russian logistics cost them. It's $9 per pound more expensive than I would pay as an American. And that's a significant cost. It sounds like it's a trivial number. No, no, no. It's a big, big damn number. If you want to feed a Russian army on a border, you got a problem. And so with that array of forces, we kept saying, look, I think I see something coming together. And then when you're the guy saying, I think I see something coming together, they act like they never even heard you for 6 months. They come out and they say, well, this nobody could have seen this coming. It's like, we did say this was coming.
Yeah.
So I guess the point I'm making is it is another potential operational advantage we have, EM, that when you can make an effect happen, and I mean an effect, so that would cause your adversary to completely put their head on a swivel. I'm trying to look at, and you made a very, you said the dirty word, scale. What can we do at scale that makes an impact? And so those are the two things that have to be accomplished that I try to wrap my arms around is what can be done at scale that's asymmetric? Is it a financial line of effort? Is it is it an internal to that company or corporatist line of effort? Is it on a think tank basis? Is it at a institution like a Davos? A lot of the good guys like myself, we hold membership cards in some of these places. What is out there for us in terms of opportunity? And honestly, I always go back to the founders. Maybe I'm just a hopeless romantic, but they thought that way. They thought that way. At a micro scale, that's what the hell the Boston Tea Party was about. And the reaction in London was, you got to be shitting me. They would never do that. No, they would never do that. They would not do that. Who did that? And
Right.
it's very helppful. It destabilizes, and then you have to be ready with your next punch.
So this is in the book, The Eternal War. This is why I wrote the only counter to the eternal war is the infinite game. We have to outplay them,
Yes.
right? We need to not get caught up in their stick up the derriere, fourth point of contact, mentality. This
Right.
is also serious. I mean, it is deathly serious, but you don't win deathly, like some of the worst jokes, and I mean, like dirty, nasty, ruthless jokes and laughing were in gunfights,
Yeah.
right? When you think everything should be the most absolute serious some of the most raunchy, joking, laughing, macabre kind of stuff's happening in gunfights.
Yeah. Flying's the same, by the way.
Yeah, well,
We've lost half our engines, so you're telling me there's a chance.
yeah. So I've only fallen out of your birds, on purpose.
Yes, I know. Something about green light.
Yeah. So, this is they have a computational problem. They have what's called an NP hard problem, right?
Yep.
And their NP hard problem is they run up against energy utilization, heat dissipation, just at a physics level, and then on a computational level. But all of the computational stuff that they're doing has to be pre-programmed. So you just hit them with innovative gameplay.
Yeah.
Colonel?
But where do you see that coalescing? That's the issue that I have. There's all of these entities out there that you hear about on a daily basis that are working for the opposition. Where's our think tanks, NGOs that are talking about this and actively resourcing this asymmetrical attempt at derailing their plans? Because I've looked for it for the last 10 years and I don't see it.
It doesn't exist, and you can't do it that way because, one, they're already decades, as you say, 60 years into this. They're already way down the pathway there, and they can outfund anything that anybody throws at them with all this, phony trillions of dollars. So this is the thing that it comes down to, right? So I go to Special Forces, qualification course, the SFQC. I go to the SFQC, go through the SFQC to learn how to be an unconventional warfare expert. How do you learn to be an unconventional warfare expert? Through convention, right?
But
So, yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
but that's my point.
yeah.
Where do all of us coalesce into this in order to marshal what resources we do have to be a cog in that wheel?
Yeah, so I look at the disproportionate impact that memes have, right? See, we have an army vastly
Yeah,
larger
you're
than
right.
theirs.
You're right.
We have an army, an informational army that spent the last 20 years of their lives playing online games. And some of these games are unreal sophisticated, and some of these alternate reality games blend blend the lines between reality, game, and fictional worlds. Some
Right.
of them are brilliant. Some of them run for like a decade or more. We've got a whole army. We don't, they want to play they want to fight fifth generation warfare because they don't want it to go kinetic more in their little hot spots because they are genuinely afraid of that, and right to be so, because that leads often to revolutions at this
What's
point.
interesting about what you just
Yeah.
said is I do a weekly show talking about Operation Gladio, and it's so funny. My co-host is one of those gamers. I never gamed. My kid
Mm-hmm.
did. I didn't. And there has been repeated. I will present information like I was just recently talking about Syntac, which most people don't even know existed. It was a very small group of dedicated professionals across different agencies that was created in the late 70s. And of course, CIA, Mr. Vice President Bush and Reagan disbanded it because it was so effective at countering drug attacks, narco trafficking, guns trafficking. And they made so much progress that, of course, Bush saw that as a threat. But while I was presenting Syntac, the co-host went, "Hey, that's in this video game. They actually talk about Syntax." Because so you're right. There's a lot of information that are in those video games that mirror real life.
Yes.
And I have seen the effectiveness of the memers and across social media. It's actually amazing the effectiveness of them.
Yeah.
But again, if you could harness that in a concerted effort, but you don't see anybody doing that.
Well, there have been attempts at it, and then it gets hijacked pretty quick by, NSA, CIA, MI6, the Devil's Legions, intel assets. But, they want to fight an information war. Well, they built all the infrastructure. Are they going to turn it off for everybody? So one of the things we have to play to win, to beat their war. And no machine can ever innovate specifically like boys playing a game. I don't know if you have sons or Brigadier if you have sons, but little boys innovate unreal when they're playing games. And those little boys stay that way all the way. Well, I'm in my late 50s and I still try to stay that way.
My men, and now when they were little boys,
Yeah.
I remember right before I went off to a deployment, and they had gotten their new PlayStation 4 machine, I guess, or whatever it was. And they said, "Hey, Dad, come sit down and play with us." And I went, "Nah, you guys always whip the crap out of me. I'm not interested in that." And then my youngest, he's like the one that God said, "Now have one like you." He he said. He said, "Well, Pop, why don't we play a flying game? I mean, you're a pilot, so it ought to be a pretty good deal." And I go, "Yeah, I'll go play the flying game." And so I jump onto the flying game, and we're in the dogfight environment, and I'm getting my ass whipped 50 ways from Sunday. And then I'm starting to listen to my young son, who at the time was 8, and he goes, "Come on, Dad, try." And I go, "I'm working on it. The controls are a little different. There's no G forces on our bodies." And he said, "Well, Dad, what you're doing is when you go up top and you're going over the top, you're mismanaging your energy." And I stopped. I was stunned because that is exactly the instruction that a U.S. Air Force T-38 instructor, of which I used to be one, would teach his young pup at the table. And here's an 8-year-old with zero knowledge of anything of flight, any flight rules, any association with anything. It's just a 30-second of his day where he dabbles in a flying game. And that's how fast that simulation world that you're talking about can spin you up. So the other side of that is I saw this with the army coming out of Afghanistan. First thing they wanted to do when they got to me in Kyrgyzstan is run to the damn video games and play Call of Duty. And I'm like, didn't you guys just go through this in real time? And they go, oh yeah, we can't get enough of this. And so when we look now at Antifa, when we look at BLM, people shouldn't necessarily quickly discard skills that they may have picked up on Call of Duty or Call of War. I get what real and not real is, and I get what a trained professional can do to a bunch of these little urchins. But I'm thinking more of an untrained population that has no interest in any kind of gamification of any kind. And so, getting back to the meme thing, I wonder, and I want to throw this idea out onto the table. I'm watching very carefully this war play out, this battle, if you will, play out between the EU and Elon Musk. And and again, it gets back to you never know when an adversary is going to get shocked into something you do. It means it was unanticipated. So Elon fought back on their shakedown of all the platforms, and they went ahead and fined him 140 million euros, which on Twitter, which Elon apparently took personally, and now he's calling for wrecking the entire EU and dissolving the whole damn thing. And I noticed that in his campaign, he led with brilliant memes, and I mean shit that you can understand in 5 seconds. The most salient I thought was the very clear-cut European flag giving way to a Nazi flag from World War
Yes.
II. And I've been tracking that one to see where it's gone. It has hit millions upon millions of views, and most of them being in Europe. In other words, now you've got Elon this morning being threatened with jail and prison time for election interference and all types of things. So as we watch a billionaire go after trillionaires, that's where I'm talking about for us. Is there, instead of being in the grandstands watching the arena war play out, as we watch it play out, is there some sort of asymmetric line of effort that can be conducted on both sides, for that matter, to our benefit? Is there spin on the ball that can be put in any direction? I don't know what the answer is. I'm just studying it to look at that.
We have millions of men who know how to play, who have played all kinds of different games for decades and who have picked up, like your 8-year-old, a vast number of skills. So I started in the early 80s writing little computer games, stupid little computer games, right?
That's fun.
Moonraker and asteroids and that stuff as we were trying to learn computers. I got into video gaming later in life because I had read Ender's Game when I was younger and I realized that's actually where this is going. And so what is the solution? The solution is a variant of Ender's Game. We don't have the big complex, crazy, system, but the solution is we have to overwhelm their system using
Yes,
their tools and resources.
exactly.
So the way in which we do this is gameplay. Well, it doesn't have to be big, sophisticated, $500 million video game. No, it's just very clever, sophisticated, ever adapting, evolving mimetic warfare, but mimetic warfare tied into research, tied into real world things, right? Where people are digging. And I want to go back to one thing, and then I want to hear from the Colonel as well. Wired magazine in the early 2000s, I want to say 2004, 2000, somewhere in there, might have been 2000, somewhere around then, maybe 2007. They wrote a piece that was everybody thought that kids playing video games was making them dumber. Turned out kids that played an average of 4 hours of video games a week were 30% higher on what's called a J score, which is a composite intelligence score, skills, physical skills, eye-hand coordination, IQ, etc. Why? Well, kids were learning complex physics and mathematics without ever having to look at a formula, just like your 8-year-old,
Yes.
right? And so kids that have got, so we're looking at these young men that we have, right? Specifically young men, particularly, and some young women, but particularly young men as being useless. They are the most useful any population of young men has ever been in history for the time and the conflict that we're in. We don't need them on the battlefield with guns. Now, some of that's going to happen, right? But most of
Right.
those forces, most of those guys are GWAT boys, right?
Yeah.
We have the largest force of highly skilled, highly trained, highly capable young men who already have 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and not just young men. Some of them are in their 40s, and hell, I still play video games every once in a while, right? And they're good. Most of them suck now. They all went woke. But that's the point, right? Is that we now have an army of these people. How do you organize and coordinate them? And you got to be careful doing that because then that's a point of attack and
Right.
all of that. So yeah, Colonel, I'll stop there.
So I'm going to highlight for anyone who hasn't read it your recent post about the DNI.
Hmm.
And I'm also, as the female on the panel, going to the kind of to your point in that article is the women.
Yes.
My middle daughter is, and I just want to tell you a real short story that's very applicable. We were on vacation in Indiana, where I'm originally from, and she was probably around 16. My cousin's son, who was in college, played Call of Duty. My daughter is an expert on Call of Duty. And so when they were talking about, he was talking about joining his friends in a few minutes online, but his partner had not shown up. And I said, go ahead and take Megan up with you. And he's looking at her going, what? Why would I do that? Not knowing anything about her. And I said, trust me. And so they came down a few hours later and he went, oh my God, we kicked everybody's ass. And he had totally underestimated her skill simply because she was a woman. And she graduated high school with an associate's degree. She is that person you're talking about. She has a higher IQ than all of her peers and did so. I mean, she graduated college at 19. She's one of those people. And the skill that she got from playing video games, although I limited it to a healthy amount, was incredible. And it has stayed with her. She is in an office setting now. She has an international business degree, and she's in an office setting now that she works circles around everybody. And that thought process of anticipating and all of that stuff, all of those skills are resident in her ability to participate in whatever it is that she does. And I think as soon as I read your article, she was the first person that popped into my mind. And I believe, just like in World War II, the role that women played, like in the SAS and all of those things, because they're underestimated at the onset, is kind of like one of our kind of whatever you would call it. It's like our hidden asset in the deployment of this meme warfare and information warfare, because people constantly underestimate.
Churchill, well, so when the SOE and OSS were stood up, 40% of them were women.
Yeah, that's right.
I won't speak about kind of why it was women on one level, because that would be indelicate.
There's probably some reason.
It'd be indelicate.
Yeah.
But the Germans actually stated they had no idea or comprehension how dangerous these women would be or could be, right? I wrote a piece here, Churchill's Horse, a week or so ago, but very much to that point, right? Very much an
Yes.
underestimation of the soft lethal power of women.
Even outside of the sex realm,
Yeah.
I remember when I was in Belgium the first time, and I was a student at the Royal Belgian School. I would go to these ceremonies around the country, and especially as we get closer and closer to Memorial Day. Well, I had the good fortune to be up on the coast at Cuxida, sitting next to at the time an 80-year-old woman, maybe yeah, 80 I would put her at. And so my second language is Flemish, and she's clearly a woman from Flanders. And during the course of the entire meal, while I wasn't paying attention to anybody but her, she told me the story about her living in World War II in the very rich suburb of Ottachem, and and that it was her house that was taken over by the Gestapo, and that's where they set up the Gestapo headquarters, is in her house. And she was made to be a maid and to serve them. And she told me the story about one afternoon she was 11 kilometers away in the college town of Leuven, and it had gotten back to her that her little operation that she was running in the cellar of that Gestapo headquarters, where she was getting and gathering downed aircrew from bombers and escaped POWs. That would be the halfway house to push them on through the resistance in the OSS. They did it right there under the in the basement of where these Germans were staying, the most deadliest in the country. And they got word to her in Leuven at the market. They think they're on to you. They're actively talking about you running a ring. And so what she did was she took off her high heels and she ran the 11 kilometers, and she got to the house in Ottachem and made it in time to explain herself, diffuse the entire situation, and to save the 4 crew members that were down in the basement, and they got out of there. And so this gets to the larger conversation that I think we started at, is we understand there is a very, very dark, dark storm coming. I think we get it very clearly. A lot of people won't believe that right
We're
now.
already in it.
Well, we
Yeah.
are, but we're not into the elements where most
Yeah.
every American could sit there and go, "Holy shit, what's going on?"
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's about to happen. And what I would say is that gal did not wake up, or she wasn't born with that level of lion's courage. She wasn't born with that. What she saw was the evil rising around her over many years. What she saw was men who laid down their arms at the Belgian border and just let the tanks roll right on through. And she made a choice. And I think to your quest, EM, that you have been embarking on for a long time, I think you're trying to urge people to not only educate them, give them the things that they're missing from this highly technological society that our kids are growing up in, but that they have to go and make a choice, and they've got to be educated well enough to make that choice.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. You know, what people need to stop doing is falling for the psyop that technology is all powerful.
Right.
It's not. All computational power on Earth combined is less computationally rich than a 3-year-old child.
Yeah.
They put untold trillions of dollars a year, however, into the illusion of the power. Now what's happening? Why are they moving now? They're moving now towards the really dark stuff that, Brigadier, you and I talked about offline, right, or off public line. Why they're moving now is because they can't economically or literally at the physics level, maintain the illusion anymore. So now they have to move to mass slaughter. Now they want us to do it to ourselves. They want us to kill ourselves first, which is what all the wokest stuff was, and MAID and all this other stuff. And then they move to the really dark stuff.
Right.
So, and they're going to try to convince us, like they're trying to move us to this new computationalist religion right now, where, the belief that the conversion of electricity is economics. They're
Yeah.
openly stating it. It's ludicrous,
Yeah.
right? So I don't disagree with you. The point I would say though is this, is that we have and Colonel, thank you for that. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of women there too. We have a vast pool of trained and ready fighters. They understand, these borderline autist guys, Tommy and I know a couple of these in common, right? The things that their minds come up with, the cleverness that their minds come up with on this information space is just nothing any of us in planning, any of us on, even on the operational side would ever have thought of, right?
Yeah.
So, giving people hope, well, that's the first thing. Well, here's two ways to give you hope about the future. One, they cannot technologically do what they say they can do. It's not possible. Technologically, energetically, thermodynamically, it's not possible. Also, programming, logic, all of that, it's just not possible. The
Right.
illusion is. The second piece is that even were it possible, even if it were only 50% possible, you get 50,000 young men and women who are playing a game to counter that. The whole thing's ruined. Their
Right.
whole multi-trillion dollar control system's ruined by 30,000, 50,000 people just overwhelming it with clever gameplay. And when I say gameplay, it's not like video games exactly. It's more like alternate reality games where you're blending the online and the offline and real things, real historical things, real current things with, the game world, etc.
It's the technologically advanced version of the Tea Party.
Well, no, it is. What I would also say is it's Jade Helm, but for private sector. And anybody who's participated in Jade Helm, which I wrote a lane and I ran a lane one season, it's Jade Helm for the private sector.
Yeah.
That's an excellent analogy.
And
You know
we've got a
that.
ton of people who can write lanes and run lanes and all of that for fun. We're
Yeah.
not at war, right? We don't, but okay, I see your psyop. I see your manipulative play. I see your control thing. Okay, let me write a little script, a little game here and get some players to play and whoop, we'll just bring it all out in the open. Here it is. Here's the receipts. Here's here's your
Right.
counter. Here's the counter to your counter messaging as you're doing it with memes and right.
So this gets to the asymmetric line that may bear fruit. This might be a very good vector to be on because it accomplishes a lot of things. It They think technologically this world of AI, robotics, control, CBDC, digital ID, constant surveillance, they think they're close.
Yeah,
They think they're close.
yeah,
I'll tell you,
yeah,
Alex
yeah,
Karp,
yeah,
Alex Karp
yeah,
and Palantir just got their asses kicked out of Switzerland this morning.
yeah,
And he takes that as an attaboy. He thinks that I must be on the right track.
yeah,
Here's the thing. When you have a line of effort and an asymmetric effort that knocks them off balance a little bit, takes down that confidence a little bit, that distance that they had to close to make all their dreams come true just got widened a little bit by some vector that they couldn't see. It is destabilizing in their heads. And the
Yeah.
nice part is none of these little creeps has any warrior ethos whatsoever. None. Zero. They are
they're
seedy,
estrogens.
creepy
No
little
disrespect.
hive minders that come together, and they again. I love the way you couch this. They're a techno religion,
Yes.
and but that means they've when you sign up for a religion, you're blinding yourself to all other options, and that means they have some biases. They're blinded. And they can be very destabilized and demoralized if you can create effects that they weren't expecting, that you can widen the distance. And I think your game ideas, your we've got legions of kids with great skills. They just need to be organized. Sprinkle a little bit of history on them, a little bit of economic
Yeah.
history on them, and I
Yeah.
think they'll just be fine.
Tie them into their community. And Tommy and I talked this the other day in a conversation we were having, right? I
Yeah.
don't know if Colonel or Brigadier, if you guys know the term MMORPG,
Mm.
massive multiplayer online role playing game.
Okay.
I wrote an article on this here with MMORPG several weeks ago, but life is the most rich sophisticated MMORPG ever even conceived of.
Right.
Nothing technological can even come close to the game that is life. So why have they been distracting everybody with all of these digital artificial reality and artificial worlds? Is to keep us from the real world, which is unreal rich. I know all the things I know about history. Why? Because when I was young, we didn't have electricity. Hell, for several years, we didn't have a floor in our house. And we had a dirt floor. We didn't have TV. We didn't have video games. I never had a video game console ever growing up. So where was my life? My life was out, play. Where was my game? It was outside. It was with other people. It was with the animals. It was in sports, right? It was in books. A lot of it was books, right? So, okay, well, where'd that come from? Where'd that come from, right? And that's the thing. That's the other thing, right? We got all these autistic kids and borderline autistic kids. You know what they're really good at? Games.
Yeah.
And you know what they really like? They like games that tie into real clever, real things, right? They don't really actually like the artificial stuff. They get through that, it bores them, right? You tie them into history and go, hey, this thing that's happening right now, that actually started 300 years ago. Go chase that.
Yep.
And then they come back with this, you guys remember the show Connections,
Yes.
right? Brilliant show.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
And when I say kids, I mean, again, some of these are millennial, so you got Gen Z, millennials, and younger Xers even. And I'm an older Xer, but even still, right? I'm one of the weird
43
ones.
and down is kid in my book right now.
There you go. Okay. All right. Right. So start giving these little things and let them chase it down. And man, they'll come back with all kinds of things. And then, we're war fighters. We're unconventional, irregular warfighter kind of people. Okay, well then what do? Well, you got to do something. You got to make sure it doesn't get corrupted like QAnon did, because QAnon, is my suspicion, was the first attempt at this. And vast amounts of resources by the Devil's Legions were poured in there, and the Praetorians, by the way, the banking financial cabal system, were poured in to corrupt that. So then you build in, what do we do in special operations? You got counter cells, right? You got groups that are playing the game against the game itself to ensure that it's not, so these gamers know how to do it. People should look at some of these game libraries. Tommy can talk to this way better than me. Some of these games are ludicrously sophisticated about special operations, not just Call of Duty, but there's like Splinter Cell, there's Mass Effect, there's just, there's all these games that teach all of these skills.
I've watched numbered war plans overlaid into some of these games. In fact, I'm like, is the writer read in on this numbered war plan and have they committed a crime?
Yeah, and named operations. Right. And the operations are all in capital letters, right? The named operations. Yeah.
I have seen that. It gets back to some of the activities that we saw after the Snowden event, and they put the movie out, 0 Day. I don't know if you saw 0 Day.
No, I didn't see it.
It's worth your time, especially if you've ever held any kind of clearance, certainly with your time in the Q course. I know, Roxanne, so my wife, who used to be a targeter in Special Operations, Europe Special Operations Command, kind of a mapper. So we had a common frame of reference for the types of stuff that we were read into. And then we watched 0 Day. And we're looking at each other like, how is this movie a legal movie?
Yeah.
That blacked out NSA person just gave away stuff at a clearance level that I'm not allowed to say on this channel right now.
Yes.
And we watched all that, but in the background, getting to your point, I can see where the gamers, they get into this and they're not inhibited. They're not encumbered by those rules. They're not, those are not their rules.
No.
And it does lend itself to being in the game world. So that's where the game world comes to real life consequences and circumstance against real life historical backdrops. But when we look, those are the folks that I think absolutely have the skill sets to bring to bear consequences to these lines of effort that the arrogant think that they've got all buttoned down.
It's how you beat all of the software programming,
Mm-hmm.
right? How do you beat the algorithms?
Yeah.
Humans playing. Humans who intuitively, instinctively understand the algorithms because they've been playing against them for 10 years, 5
Right.
years, 20 years. They
Right.
don't need to know what the algorithm is or how to compute it, right? Or
Right.
how to convert it to machine language. They've been playing against it since they were 5,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, I was a targeting guy with a certain color, not
Mm-hmm.
yellow, but another one,
Right.
right? With a whole lot of read-ons. And you're absolutely right. I was dumbfounded on how many of these things you would find online that we were told, don't ever talk this. This is above top secret, right? This is
Right.
right. And I mean literally above top secret, right? And they're like, don't ever talk about this. I was like, that was just in Black Ops, Call of Duty Black Ops. Sorry, that's actually, there's a website over there and somebody's
Right.
got all of that. And oh, by the way, the manuals that you're using right now, not the current version, of course, because that wouldn't be good OPSEC, but last year's or the year before's manual is
Four revisions
online,
back. Right. I
right?
know. I know. I know.
It's like, get the, yeah.
I had a Chinese general officer. We were in a track 2 diplomacy dialogue. It wasn't going well, so we're trying to repair our relationship from the previous shouting match. And he looked at me and he said, "Do you know why you piss us off so much?" And I said, "Give me one reason why you piss us off." I'm sure it's numerous things. Is it my toothpaste, my coif, my good looking? What is it? And this is the same Chinese general who told Rolling Stone magazine that he was interested in wiping out the entire Western seaboard with Chinese nukes. And so I'm with Mr. Bubbly, and he said, "You damn Americans." He goes, "We study your doctrine, all of your war college papers. We study it all in our colleges, and we read American doctrine, and we know it like the back of our hands. And then you never fight that way." And I said, "Oh, so this is a hurt feelings report." I said, "So of the two sides, there's only one side you named that knows anything about American doctrine. Because what we do is we look at what we just did, we throw it in some stupid book, throw it on a shelf, and it's the end of it. And then you guys are dumb enough to buy the book or go get the book, or you even worse, you risk a human intelligence resource to go sleep with some professor to give you the damn book. Now you got the book, you go read the book, and then you find out we're not interested in that anymore. That's not who we are." Well,
You find
that's
out
our
we're not,
skills.
you find out we're not even literate.
That's right. That's our skills. Because the ultimate American war planning machine is sitting around with a bunch of pizza. That's why the pizza metric in the Pentagon is freaking real.
Yes.
We sit around with a bunch of pizza and we go, well, shit, you know what we could do? And that's why Benghazi, when I was sitting around the table and we're going to offer the president advice, no, this is Crimea. On Crimea, we're sitting around going to offer the president some military advice that UCOM has to come up with. You get all these generals and they just want to be ambassadors. It's like, why didn't you guys sign up for the ambassador program? Because they're all coming out, well, we'll do flexible deterrent options. Oh, we could do some sanctions. We could talk mean to them. And I'm out there and I go, isn't it supposed to be military advice? Here's the thing. I've got the logistics. Let's do Berlin Airlift 2. I will throw gas, bacon, beans, and bullets into Ukraine, and the only catch is they got to go kick some Russian ass out of Crimea, and we're done. And then I was excused. They said, "Well, thank you, Blaine. Have a good evening."
It's because you weren't speaking in State Department language.
I wasn't.
Right,
And
'cause
the
that's
poll
what-
ad, the ambassador
Yeah.
there to babysit us all, he
Yeah.
was, "You and I are going to talk later." And I said, "I'm certain." And then the White House called me about an hour later and chewed my ass out, skipping seven layers of management. And that's where I have to leave it because I am on my hard stop. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Colonel, if I might. Yeah. So, Brigadier, I know you got to jump. There's one last piece, Colonel, I'd like to
Yeah,
maybe
but
share with you.
if you need a jump,
Yeah.
General Holt, we'll keep going for a minute.
Thanks, Tommy.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
everybody.
Yeah, sir. So you have a substantive following of great people, and you do an immense amount of heavy lifting on all of these things yourself. One wonders how much more we could broaden that if you gave some of your followers some challenges. Hey, go chase this down. Here's an Easter egg. Go chase that down.
I They do that. I don't even
Yeah.
have to ask them.
Don't even have to ask them. Yeah.
No. As a matter of fact, I would say a good 50% of the information that I present is DM to me.
Awesome.
They there is such a broad spectrum of people in our collective, and they're from all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
people that join us from Germany, from Costa Rica, and tell their stories. And that's been one of the most amazing. Obviously, I started over doing this kind of as a book club on Truth Social. When
Mm.
I moved to X, it exploded. Because we started doing spaces where people from around. I used to have a guy, and I don't remember what time we were doing it, but it was later in the evening, and he would join us from his commute to work over in Germany. And
Mm.
you would get real live updated information as to what was going on. And yeah, I have a guy that routinely DMs me about he's in Germany, and he specifically talks about child trafficking and has done an amazing amount of research. And so, yeah, I mean, we have people from all over the world. We have people in Asia. And the very few times that I've actually thrown something out to them, I was overwhelmed. But
Mm.
generally, they just provide us the information. We have a signal chat that we put things in folders so we can go back to the research that
Oh,
they've done.
wonderful.
Yeah. And so I just try to aggregate and push out after I do my own kind of, and that's why I loved what you guys were saying about the the autistic people need the historical
Yes.
reality
The
of,
anchors. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
because they're not getting it obviously in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
current
Yeah. Yeah.
education system. And I think that's the valuable tool that we provide is there's so much of the material because it's true with me, and I lived inside this beast for 30 years. There's so much of the material that I find hard to believe. And if I find hard to believe, most Americans, it's not even in their thought process. There's
Yeah.
no way that they can contemplate the evil that is out there. And until you uncover what the history really is, you can't fathom what they're planning to do to us if you
Yeah.
don't understand what they've already done around the world.
Well, very much to your point, most people have no comprehension of what they're doing to you right now,
Correct.
much less where it's going,
Correct.
right? A lot of times, yeah, go ahead.
Just like what we were saying with the Phoenix program. The detail of what happened in the Phoenix program is not known to the mass population.
Yeah.
And they didn't know that just prior to our Phoenix program, the MI6 did it in Malaysia. Almost to the use of a version of Agent Orange, every aspect of the Phoenix program was done in Malaysia just prior to it being done in Vietnam. And I didn't know that. That's not
Yeah.
in
Yeah. Yeah.
any or college material. So when you start researching this, it starts to snowball and you start to see patterns. And I think that would help immensely of the people that if they just had that piece, the memes get much more effective.
Yeah. The Malaysian operation was a counterinsurgency, British-led counterinsurgency operation, which is touted in the unconventional world as one of only 3 successful counterinsurgency operations in the history of the world. And it was ruthless and it was brutal, but it was also very surgically done. It wasn't broad spectrum, wide scale ruthlessness.
And I like I I take issue with the terminology too, because this has been something that I've found historically true. We have co-opted terms and used them in our favor to paint us as okay.
Always,
So you
always.
use the term counterinsurgency, right? So that by default means that there was an insurgent force in the country. Well, the quote unquote insurgent force in the country was their own people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so
We
how
were
do
the
you
insurgent force.
exactly?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
just on the basic terminology, we have crafted a psyops to justify everything that we do by the use of the words. So,
So in the novel, or not the novel, but the book I wrote, The Eternal War, right? Resentfuls always speak in double speak, as Orwell talked about,
yes,
right? And why? Because it works. Works extraordinarily well when you couple it with projection, where you're projecting your actions on somebody else, transference, where you're taking your actions, you're getting somebody to transfer it from you to somebody else.
yes,
And then when the projections worked and or the transferences worked, then you isolate. And
yes,
then you can use doublespeak to articulate, well, that's the bad guy, right? See the actions that you all agree they did, and then you're looking at me, you see what I do, but you don't see me doing it. You're putting it on that person. Then we isolate them, and then we use doublespeak to maintain all of that. This all
yes,
goes back. This is an old Roman thing. This is an old Venetian, Dutch, British thing. This is what, resentful occupiers do. They've been playing, we're talking fifth generation warfare. We've been doing fifth generation warfare for thousands of years. Get the F out of here. Right? It's just our tools are more sophisticated now, but we've been doing this manipulative reality warping, artificial reality stuff. That's one of the doctrinal and lines of effort in the Eternal War is reality. Right?
yes. And I think clearing up the terminology, because you have to wire your brain differently then. When you read history and you see the words counterinsurgency, I've now begun basically inserting, no, you're the insurgent.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You have to hire, and as a matter of fact, probably at the end of the first year of this effort, I sat down one day and I figured out that I have no idea what was and wasn't communism. I mean, I know theoretically what communism is, but I also have discovered that the CIA called everything communism because of the National Security Action Memorandum that was written by Truman that said if you label it communist, you can kill it. And so, or you can assassinate a president by saying that he is a communist. And so you again, then it requires you to go back through history and figure out what actually was and wasn't. Because they generically referred to anyone, like, for example, in Iran, they kept talking about the Tudeh party. And I'm like, okay, well, how big was the Tudeh party? And for those of you who don't know, we overthrew the Iranian government in 1953 because Mossadegh was a communist. Well, or there was a threat of communism. Well, when you actually go back and you figure it out, it was like less than 1% of the population. It was a party of like 4,000 people that had been under the Shah and wanted workers' rights and basically what you and I would refer to as a unionization of workers for adequate pay because they had been prostituted by the English oil company there. And since when did workers' rights become by de facto communist? And so it does then make you come forward and begin looking. And I came across, like in Guatemala, there were CIA analysts at the very low rung sending cables back to CIA headquarters that have now been declassified that says, yeah, they're not communist. There's no communist here. So the next year in 1954, we overthrew the Guatemalan government under the guise of it was communist. Yeah. When in fact, they had plenty of information that documented the fact that there was no communist ties at all, but that's not what was sold to the American people. And so you come away with a complete new understanding of, as I refer to them as the international syndicate, that it's all about the resources and their control of those resources. And they will literally label you anything that's convenient in order to take what you have.
Yeah. This is why I wrote took several years thinking through it, very diligently. And my friend Tucker Max really spent a lot of hours talking with me over a year. I wrote The Eternal War to try and get down beneath all of these labels because none of them are real. None of them are genuine. None of them are, and this goes back, this current set of labels go back about 400 years. There was another set of labels prior, right? It was Catholic Protestant divide. And before that, 400 years before that, it was, the Holy Roman Empire versus, there's these portfolios of artificial reality supported. So and I was coming out of severe traumatic brain injury recovery as well. So it was a perfect time to do it because I couldn't hold on and remember all these complex words. So I wrote The Eternal War as a quick primer. Tommy and I have done a show on it a year or so ago, or maybe a year ago, to get down underneath to who are really the combatants. And how is the war, this eternal war, actually fought and over what? And, so that's on the resentful side, the eternal war. And then on the responsible side, how are we playing the game and how have we played the game to actually counter this, this just nonstop lies and illusion? So I wrote the book, The Eternal War. I wrote it more as a primer, as a quick, fast, get down to this one so the computers could read it and hopefully LLMs will train on it. But also because too much wordiness is the problem, right? We live in a world of just narratives upon narratives upon narratives upon narratives. People need to just stop and turn all that off for a little while. For 5 minutes, 3-4 times a day, your entire view of the world will fundamentally shift back towards reality. And just that alone, you'll be able to start to pierce through some of this just ludicrous amount of lies. But I wrote The Eternal War specifically so people can have a deeper under framework that isn't left and right. It isn't in the language of all of these divides and artificial divides and all artificial linguistic constructs that have been put out there for us to chase, to obfuscate exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
So,
and to me, that's critical to see the world for what it really is and not what the way they want you to see it.
yeah. And when we do, we see the ugly, we do see the darkness. And once you see it, you can't not see it. There's an old, very old, I don't remember origination, but in several cultures, there's this gets to the deception part, right? The double speak. There is a concept in very old cultures that evil is not darkness, evil is light. Evil is so bright you can't look at it. By looking at it, it burns out your eyes and burns you, so you look away. Whereas reality and truth is dark. It's hard to see. It's difficult to make out. You have to really look at it for a long time for the shapes and the edges to kind of show themselves. This is, I think, one of the earliest, most fundamental linguistic doublespeak psyops. Because evil's all around us, everywhere. The malevolence in people is everywhere if you just look. But you don't want to. It's too bright. It's too blinding. It's too, burns too much. Right? So, I'm not trying to harp on that, but I'm trying to use that as an example of how sophisticated this reversing and flipping of realities is and how far back it goes.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. It is much harder to find the truth than it is to find the evil.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, okay, evil is the light. It is so blinding and so glaring and so burning. Truth is in the darkness. Truth is in the cold, quiet, calm place where you're trying to make something out.
Yeah, it's a brilliant delineation.
Yeah. It's profound. And it pulls through to today. If you look at the division, they are threatened by peacemakers. They are threatened by people that bring the divisions that they're trying to create together. And they have no qualms in taking out the people that are those people that bring the different factions together. And you see that play out today. I mean, with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, you go back in history. JFK was working behind the scenes with both Cuba and the Soviet Union. They took him out. The true peacemakers are the big disruptors.
So I want to quibble just a little point, but not to disagree with your statement. They're not upset with the peacemakers who make peace in the same framework that they're,
Right.
because maybe they can't afford this fight, to continue this exact fight, or it's destroying resources, or they might actually lose power. So they don't really mind peacemakers that operate within the artificial reality tunnel,
Correct. It's the
right?
ones that operate outside
It's
of
the
it.
ones that speak truth, like what happened between RFK or JFK and Khrushchev, where they spoke to, or was it Khrushchev? The other one, I can't remember, but
Stalin?
no, it was the one after Stalin. What was his? Whoever it was it Khrushchev? I don't remember who he spoke to, but whoever the Soviet was, Brezhnev,
Brezhnev. Yeah.
right? So they spoke directly, and what were they speaking? They were speaking truth to each other. Why?
Yes.
Because nuclear war was on the table. Imminent nuclear war was on the table, and the only thing that would allow backing away from it was no joke, speaking the truth, reality.
That's not allowed.
That's not allowed. So it's not so much making peace. We got to be careful because that's still within their construct. It's the peacemakers who do it, which is what's happening right now with ARC, America, Russia, China. There are backdoor channels happening that they're speaking truth to one another. Why? Because we are closer to nuclear war now than we were in the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, we've been backing
That's not
away
allowed.
from it in the last several months, right? And that's not allowed. That's why they're going all out for war and impeachment and all this other kind of stuff. The the
Yes.
the problem that they have is that the is that at a certain point the lies are not sustainable anymore. And this is also in the eternal war. So what do? They are always embedding the next lie, right? The seed of the next artificial reality tunnel that can expand for the next 300-400 years into things that are emerging. So anything that's good or solid or positive that's emerging, they get in there early, they corrupt that, they put the seed in there. They might even support it, but they've already planted the seed in there that's going to grow into this malevolent, resentful supporting system and structure. Give me a second. At some point in the English speaking world, at least like clockwork, about every 400 years, that artificial reality tunnel collapses because it can't energetically, thermodynamically, conservation of energy be sustained anymore. Meaning the lies are so deep, there's so many layers of lies that there isn't any more lies you can say that hides the truth. And
But they've
that's,
already crafted the
but
next.
they've already crafted. And the one that they're crafting now is this techno-feudalism, right? This techno-utopiast, computationalism religion. And they've got a lot of adherents. And unfortunately, they got a lot of bright young people, bright people tricked and fooled into it. So,
And that's a good point.
and what we have to do is we have to outplay them. And how do we outplay them? We don't play them with cryptocurrencies and all this other NFTs and data centers. No, we outplay them with life,
Good point.
history, life, connection, right? Because what is the one thing that the human animal wants the most, except for the resentful? Even the resentfuls do. That's what they're resentful over is they don't have it and they don't naturally. But what do all humans really want? We want human connection. Even the autist, even the hardcore autist, we all want human connection. And the machine and the lies can never give us that. It can only give us the illusion of it. Well, the good thing is, though, is that the machine has given us all kinds of tools where we can actually connect with a lot more people. We can find, we're not bound by the small little tribe or community that we're in anymore. I mean, they keep trying to shove us back to that, right? So we'll fight each other, right? But through gameplay, like Tommy and I have talked this before, and Colonel, you're watching it in your community, right? Um, you know, big, strong, fit guys, good-looking guys and gals, right? Strong, capable. What do we? When I was younger, we were always trying to bring people into the game to play with us, even the kids that weren't so cool or weren't so good-looking or weren't so strong, etc. Why? Because it was more fun when more people were playing. And we had to deal with the shitty kids and smack them down and but sometimes for those kids to come and play, in order for them to be able to play, they couldn't play the game we were playing. That's just the way life is. But we'd warp the rules a little bit, right? We'd warp the game a little bit so that there was game for play for them and they had a place in the game. And Tommy, you can talk this from playing video games, right? Like again, back and I'm terribly sorry, I'm gonna have to jump, but again, back to that the Wired magazine article. What the other thing that they thought video games were going to do is make people antisocial, and they found out it was exactly the opposite. That kids that were really good in the game would actually take time, take effort for somebody who wasn't so good or new to the game. They would help them build up points. They'd help them build up whatever status, etc. Train them, teach them, etc. And as long as they weren't shitty human beings, which unfortunately we get those, the gamers were actually more social and more, inclusive. And this, I hate that word because it's been dirtied so much, but they were more supportive, more, hey, come on, man. I know you suck right now, but do this and do this. Let's try this,
Yeah, they
right?
were passionate.
Yeah, yeah. Well, not weaponized though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is how I see we win, right? And you can't do that from some central command and organ. No, it's just, okay, people, it's time to play. They want to fight. Let's play. Right? Like you want an example, the best sword fighters in history, like Miyamoto Musashi and some of these others. Okay, I'll put it in a different term. Ballet, right? Ballet, French ballet, which good one. I actually really enjoy ballet. Ballet came out of fencing schools. It was how they trained the footwork, right?
I did not know that.
So ballet is fencing at its highest form, just without without the blade. And what is ballet? When you really see a good ballet, it's play. It's people, they're playing in this extraordinary, expressive, and creative way. Well, okay, it comes out of fencing. Put a blade in their hand, and then put them up against somebody else who can't move in those ways, who hasn't played the body and the music and the sound and all of that, right? That's what we got to do,
That's a great analogy.
right? Let's put the blade back in their hand. We got the dancers, the players, the game players. Let's put the blade back in their hand. And you're doing it with the work you're doing. I'm trying to do it to a much lesser extent than you are. And that is give them the information, give them the history, give them the place to start, the starting points. Help them when they come back with an interpretation. Go, that's not quite right. Go look over, you might want to go look over here to qualify that, right? Let's put the blade back in their hand. And what is that blade? Reality,
Yep.
the real world.
The real world and our real history.
And our real history and our shared history, because we do share history. And yeah, it's not all been good, but most of the parts that's not been good is these assholes warping and
Yes,
twisting frickin' history and twisting reality.
exactly.
So
Yeah. Well, we'll pin it there. And I'll send this to you guys obviously and
appreciate it.
schedule the next one because I do think it needs to be a regular group and but yeah, I mean, thank you both and General's not here. Thank you, General. And I'll send it
Call
to
him
you guys.
Brigadier because
Brigadier.
General's a 4-star, Brigadier's a 1-star. So
I'll call him the
Brigadier.
president. I don't care. He can be the president. He can be the astronaut. I don't give a shit. But yeah, I'll send it to you guys. It'll be up very soon. I'll upload it right
Appreciate it.
now, and we'll schedule the next one. And both of you guys, thank you so much for your
Awesome.
time.
Colonel,
Thank
it's
you.
always a pleasure.
It's
All right,
always
everybody. Thank you for
Take care.
watching. Hey guys, real quick, you guys know Basil Baz, ARC, the Association for the Recovery of Children. I just did a fundraiser with them the other day, and I'm going to put this on to every episode I do. They are special forces veterans who physically rescue trafficked children. They have since 1993. They have a 100% success rate. They do not take salaries. They all have day jobs, and they literally rescue sex trafficked children. Donations to them are a tax write-off. I get nothing from them, and they have not asked me to put this on. I've included this little clip on episodes for the last year or so, and I'm just re-recording it because I just got to meet him just 2 days ago for future. It's November 25th, 2025, but this will be on every episode now for the next year. And there is nothing better you can do with your money. If you can support them for even $5, please do that. It is, they truly are doing the Lord's work, and I think we all have an obligation to do that. Thank you so much.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com.
Hey guys, a huge sponsor of the show is Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. Clayton lives down in Georgia. He's been on the show before. It's actually nearby where I went to college. They are a huge sponsor of the show. They give me some money every month, even when I don't sell enough to warrant that paycheck. Meaning that the show is not free. It's just that it's free for you. If you guys need prepper food, or if you're just interested in supporting the show, I'd please ask you to go to the link in the description. Go to Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food, promo code TPC for 10% off. 72 servings per pail, 25-year shelf life. These things are, they double as dumbbells. Pasta Primavera, cheesy potato soup, mac and cheese, loaded baked potato casserole, chili mac, cheddar broccoli soup, cheesy lasagna, teriyaki rice. You can get banana chips. There's also raspberries, strawberries, and apples. There's a bunch of freeze-dried fruit, or you can even get seeds to plant your own garden. It's not a bad thing to have. It's like gold or ammunition. It's a good thing to have. It's a bad thing if you have to use it, but it's good. It's good to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. So that's what I'd say. And if you just want to support the show, please go to the link in the description. Please go support them because they support me. Thank you so much, guys.